Hello and welcome to Well, That Happened in History. This episode is all about the Battle of Kadesh, which was most recently seen hiding under deep camouflage as Ridley Scott's set-piece battle in Exodus, Gods and Kings. Well, here's what really happened.
The desert trembled under the wheels of thousands of chariots as the Egyptians and the Hittites met in battle at the city of Kadesh on the river Orontes in modern-day Syria. The king of Amun, a vassal state that had a habit of switching sides, had triggered a resumption of the Egyptian-Hittite wars by swearing loyalty to Pharaoh. It was a prize that the young Ramses II could not resist. Amun, and principally the city of Kadesh, was the key to controlling the area. It was an outright challenge to Hittite sovereignty, and the armies mustered. Ramses had marched north the next year with 4 army corps, totaling 20,000 men, to take Kadesh and to set Egyptian dominance over the area. Waiting at Kadesh was the Hittite king, Kadesh, who had gathered his army, thought to comprise over 42,000 men.
Ramses II was a hothead, and he was desperate to beat the Hittites to Kadesh. So wisely, he decided to race ahead with his own corps of Amun, leaving the rest to trail behind. When he got to the plain of Kadesh, he found 2 terrified Bedouins who told him that the Hittites were miles away. How far away did you say? Miles away. Hundreds of miles away. They're terrified of you. Did we mention how terrified they were of you? Well, having been told all that he wanted to hear, Ramses proceeded to build a camp in the middle of the plain within sight of the city, completely missing the gigantic Hittite camp just to the north.
However, late in the evening, 2 more prisoners were brought before Pharaoh. These men admitted to being servants of the king of Hatti, and told him that the Hittites were at Kadesh. They are furnished with their infantry and chariotry, carrying their weapons of warfare. They are more numerous than the sand of the river banks. See, they stand ready to fight behind the Kadesh of old. Pharaoh could do nothing without reinforcements, however, and so he sent messengers to his other corps to march to Kadesh. It would be a long and tense wait. King Kadesh had not expected the Egyptians so soon. Acting on intelligence gathered the day before, the Hittite chariot force was set in motion on the 12th to reconnoiter. Fording a small tributary of the Orontes, the strong force of Hittite chariots emerged onto the plain and discovered to their surprise a huge column of Egyptians marching across their front. This was the corps of Ra, finally catching up to Pharaoh. They were ending a long, hot, forced march and were oblivious to the enemy. The Hittite prince in command saw no other option than to whip his squadrons forwards and smash through the Egyptians. It was either that, or blow any sort of surprise.
The Battle of Kadesh saw a clash of 2 different types of military thinking. Both had their strengths and weaknesses, and both would be tested.
Now they came forth from the south side of Kadesh and broke into the army of Ra in its midst. As they were marching and did not know where they were prepared to fight, the herd of Anatolian machines battered into the middle of the African column and scattered it. The corps of Ra disintegrated into a brutal storm of sand, spears, hooves, and chariot wheels. Breaking out of the wreck of the Egyptian corps, the Hittite chariots accelerated over the plain and drove into the west side of the camp of Amun. Ramses was in the royal precinct with his sons and attendants. When the Hittites broke into the camp, his reaction to the dangerous situation saved the day for Egypt. As the Hittites rode through, they were slowed by the tents, equipment, and loot.
Yes, as sometimes happened in old-time battles, the soldiers saw dollar signs and began to pilfer things when they had much more pressing worries to be concerned about.
The Hittites now came up against Pharaoh's household troops, the mercenary Shadin Guard, who blocked the way to the royal tents. As the Hittite charge bogged down, Ramses was preparing himself for battle, and now led out Amun's chariot squadrons in a sweep around the north of the camp and began a series of wheeling charges on the flank of the Hittite warriors. The Hittites now decided to retreat and began to make their way back towards the citadel of Kadesh, behind the green fringe of the Orontes. This allowed Ramses to pursue them, and here the fresher Egyptians could pick off the tired enemy at will. Meanwhile, the chariot runners and the supporting infantry followed up in the wake of the pursuit and dispatched the surviving charioteers amongst the wrecks of their vehicles.
Egyptians preferred distance, so they could use their powerful bows to break the enemy before getting in close, whereas the Hittites, with their much heavier machines, preferred to get in close, trample down, and spear anything that moved.
Seeing the sudden reversal of fortune, King Muwatallish gathered his household supporters, including many allied princes and Hittite royalty, and crossed the river close to the eastern end of the camp of Amun to create a diversion. Pharaoh's son was still in the camp, and a victory could still have been salvaged. The Hittites wasted no time in attacking, but as they broke through the east wall, they were suddenly attacked in turn by another chariot force.
Earlier in the campaign, Pharaoh had sent out emissaries to his allies in the area to come to Kadesh and support him. This resolved itself into the Ne'arin, which were a collection of vassal leaders, and most likely even the king of Amurru, who had started the whole thing anyway. This body of troops detached its chariots, which raced ahead to the battlefield and got there just in the nick of time.
Like the proverbial cavalry showing up in the nick of time, the Ne'arin put the Hittites to flight with heavy casualties and chased them across the river, where they at last found safety from the Egyptian pursuit. That ended the Battle of Kadesh. The next day, Ramses had 4 Egyptian and 1 allied corps in the field, evening the odds with the Hittites. But Pharaoh's casualties had been heavy, and he now took a drastic measure.
Yes, after winning a surprise victory, Ramses decided to decimate one of his corps. How he did this is open to interpretation. Probably got a whole bunch of people to denounce one another. And so, after all of that unpleasantness was got out of the way, he held a mass execution in front of his entire army and the watching Hittites. Just for morale. The corps of Ra was utterly destroyed for its cowardice the day before.
Perhaps traumatized by the loss of the battle, or perhaps freaked out by the merciless destruction of the corps of Ra, Muwatallish asked for terms soon afterwards. Ramses was happy to agree on the treaty. After all, his losses had doubled in a day, and with the Hittites in control of Kadesh, he didn't have the men, or maybe the nerve, to offer a formal battle. Egyptian dreams of invading Syria ended here, but so did the long Hittite-Egyptian war. The Hittites, though defeated in the mad improvised scramble of Kadesh, won the peace. Egypt and Hatti never went to war with each other again. This had been the greatest chariot battle in history, not until the Battle of Kursk, with so many machines engaged in combat. Chariot warfare dominated attitudes to war in the Bronze Age, and it would not be until the 20th century, AD, that revolutions in engineering and weaponry would turn minds once more to mechanized mobile warfare.